Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am Dr. James Smith Jr., and welcome back to another edition of the Dr. James Show. If I'm looking kind of giddy right now, it's because I am. We have Hall of Fame talent. I'm going back to my high school and college days where I played point guard. I love giving the rock up, helping people score, bringing it down, looking to see who's open, then setting them up. That's what I'm going to be doing for the next hour. All-stars, INROADS alum, Mount Rushmore type individuals. They are doing the darn thing. And I'm looking forward to sharing their story. Again, questions, you can go in the chat room. We want you to be a part of this experience. And we had faculty, staff members from Philadelphia INROADS last year. And from that, this show was born, bringing back alum, bringing back the students who went through the program and seeing what they're doing now. When I was younger, I used to read Sports Illustrated, and I loved once a year they would do an episode or an article on where are they now? Athletes who starred and superstars back in their day, what are they doing now? Well, that's what this feels like to me. What are you guys doing now? And they're still superstars. But before we bring them out, let's watch a short video which speaks to the significance, the power, and the totality of the INROADS experience.
Making inroads into corporate America.
Over the last 50 years, we have touched 150,000 students.
INROADS is a nonprofit that's been helping underserved students get paid internships and jobs in Fortune 500 companies since 1970. Forrest Harper is INROADS president and CEO.
I made it a passionate commitment that I was going to be on the front lines of helping students who are underserved but super talented.
And at the same time, INROADS helps more than 250 companies gain access to diverse talent as they work to diversify their workplace.
We average a total of 10,000 students a year.
Companies like AT&T, Chase, and Procter & Gamble. At INROADS, workplace diversity isn't just a box to check, it's a mission that started after founder Frank Carr heard Dr. Martin Luther King speak in Washington.
Free at last! Thank God Almighty! We are free at last!
We were fighting similar challenges as of today. Poverty, low income, opportunities for access, bias in the workplace, same challenges. But he found a way to level the playing field.
INROADS alumni include CEOs, corporate executives, politicians, and entrepreneurs all over the world, and even news anchors like me.
When you see where are they today, you know the program really works. Our work is not finished. We are now focused on ensuring that students, no matter where they come from, families where they come from, should have an opportunity.
The free INROADS program provides motivated students training, education, real-world experience, and in the pandemic, they've added a virtual interview class.
Our goal is to stop talking, stop being theoretical, and take action. You want to see a change in the country? Go to inroads.org and put a note in the space and say, I want to volunteer. Don't stand back in the shadows. Stand out front. Let's make a difference.
In Sacramento, Lisa.
I love it. I love it. I'm fired up. We got 6 of those alum with us right now. All-star squad. I'm going to read their names. Please unmute your mic, your camera. Come on out. All-star squad. We have Mickey Harris. Mickey is the senior assistant professor of journalism at Morehouse College. We have Ricardo. Michelle. Ricardo is the managing partner of the Palladium Group. We have Theodore Ted Jordan, who is the VP of Service at Paychex. We have Dr. Salika Michael, who board certified obstetrician and gynecologist with 22 years of medical and leadership experience. We also have Toya Lawson, who is a partner with Bridge Partners, an executive search firm. And finally, we have Gavin Lawson, who is a leadership, the federal customer outcomes, go to the market practice at ServiceNow. Like I said, superstars, come on out. welcome Philadelphia INROADS alum to the Dr. James Show. Oh man, all this talent on one screen. What? I'm so thrilled that you are here. I'm quickly going to go around and start with Mickey. Again, who you are and what you do your way. I just shared your title, but share who you are, what you do, and where you do it. And I'm going to ask you to do it in 30 seconds or less because we got a lot of information to talk about. Mickey, leading off.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here and to see everybody. If you ask me what I do or who I am, I'm a storyteller. And I will talk about this today, but I put who I am into everything I do. And I tell stories as a photojournalist, a documentary filmmaker, a professor, a drone pilot, just anything related to bringing stories to an audience in a way that allows us to think about who we are and the ways that we live.
And in the meantime, you find time to eat and sleep and take care of family. Wow, I can't wait to hear about your story. Let's go to Ricardo.
Good afternoon, Dr. James. Good afternoon, everyone. Ricardo Michelle. I'm a proud product of Southwest Philadelphia. In terms of who I am and what I do, I'm a proud father, husband to Dr. Salika Michelle. And my pursuit is to contribute positive to society, make positive contributions to society. And I do that through my work in international development. Right now, focused on helping others in need and helping others in countries hopefully achieve the best. And so I've dedicated my life to that of service.
And when you retire from that role, you're going to move into radio show host because you got a smooth voice, man. Late nights with Brother Ricardo, right? Ricardo, where's home? Where's home? And Mickey, where's home?
Well, right now I reside in Bowie, Maryland.
Okay, Maryland. And Mickey?
I'm in Atlanta.
Okay, all right, Atlanta. Theodore, Ted. I'm so used to calling you Ted. Jordan, I'm sure your mom called you Theodore when you got in trouble. Theodore?
Hey, Dr. Jim, that was Theodore.
And where do you do it?
All right. Hello, Dr. Jim. Hello, everybody. So I'm glad to be here. So I'm a my goal is always to be a high impact player. So, you know, whether I'm starting the game or coming off the bench, you know, from a work standpoint, you talked about, you know, what I do. I work for Paychex, leading the service organization for that company. From a community standpoint, try to be somebody who's highly engaged, highly impactful, making a positive contribution, giving back to others, and obviously from a family standpoint, proud father of two, and obviously just try to be somebody that the family can lean on when they need to. So home for me right now is I'm upstate New York in Rochester, but Philly guy, born and raised, and at heart. So thank you.
Come on, Ted, you got to say it right. West Philadelphia, born and raised.
I'm a Mount Airy boy, so I'm the Northwest.
Oh, you want the pretty guys, right? Mount Airy. Everyone wanted to move out to Mount Airy. Dr. Salika Michelle, talk to us, Doc. What's up?
Hey everyone. I am Dr. Salika Just Buddy Michelle. I'm wife to Ricardo Michelle here. I am a board certified OBGYN. I have two passions, one of which is my OBGYN portion for adults, where I am an advocate to reduce mortality and morbidity for Black female patients in the state of Maryland. And I also have a platform called Wise Teens, where I educate and enlighten and empower teen girls and boys with age-appropriate information about their bodies in a safe space. So I kind of work on both spectrums, but I am from Mount Airy.
We got two from Mount Airy, and we're going to come back to you and Ricardo and find out how that happened. You're supposed to be at INROADS to study, learn, get your corporate gig, internship, not to find love, but we'll be talking about that. Speaking of finding love, our next two folks found love too. What? When were you getting work done? Gavin, Toya, who's up first?
My love, please go ahead.
I'll go first. So I'm Toya Lawson, and thank you for having me today. I'm looking really forward to this. This is going to be a lot of fun. By day, I am a routine search professional, and basically what that means is I'm a talent and leader finder. And we help our clients basically find, now that I'm with Bridge Partners, really strong, diverse minority and female talent for organizations, both for-profit and nonprofit across the US. And I am wife to Gavin, also an INROADS alum. And we have 2 beautiful children, and we live out in Wyncote, Pennsylvania, out in Cheltenham Township. And I'm a South Jersey girl. I grew up in Williamstown, New Jersey.
All right, Toya. I currently live in South Jersey, Mount Laurel, but West Philadelphia in the house here. Gavin, you brilliant man. You spotted Toya at INROADS and you said, I'm not waiting.
I have good eyes. How's that? So interestingly enough, I sell professional services, and I'd like to say that Toya was my first sale. How's that? Right?
Gavin was my first recruit.
Oh, my first recruit. I love it.
So I work for a company called ServiceNow. It's a software company that's delivering, workflows. We automate business workflows. So I sell to our U.S. federal government. Been doing that for 10 years. Really, really enjoying it. I grew up as a professional services delivery person, right?
Ooh.
So I know what I'm selling, right? And I can put my arms around my customers and go, hey, listen, I know how this thing works, right? Do it this way. Don't do it the way that you're thinking about doing it, right? And we want to make them as successful as possible. So we want to make the federal government as successful as we can. We know that they have lots of need in automating processes, as I'm sure you can imagine. So they've been adopting our software really, really well. And it's our company growing like crazy. For me, I'm a Mount Airy product.
I thought you were going to say the Mount Airy product, right? Good stuff. I want to dive in. We have a lot to cover, but I want to dive in right now. I'm going to dive in with Mickey first, and anyone else who wants to answer the question, we'll take a couple answers. But the first question is, how did you get to INROADS? How did you learn about INROADS? What was that like in the beginning? I don't want the entire experience just yet, but somehow, some way, you found INROADS or they found you. What was that like for you getting started with INROADS? Mickey?
Well, in high school, I grew up in South Jersey, and I was a senior at Morristown Friends High School 29 years ago. And I was working part-time job at the Mexican food factory in Marlton as a busser. And my parents said, what do you want to do for a career? And I had no idea at all. And so they had an INROADS brochure. I don't know where they got it from, but they had it and they presented it to me and said, well, you need to start thinking about a career. And 2 weeks later, Dory Ray was at our high school doing an info session. And
is she so quiet? Isn't she so quiet and reserved?
Dory sold it. Dory, you know Dory. So she came in, she talked to us, and that was it. So after Dory was there and I applied and interviewed with Pat, I was ready for talent pool, and I was nervous as anything. My mother called all her girlfriends about what do you need to wear? What earrings should you have on? How do you need to speak? They were trying to train me for the training. And so it was an exciting time, and I was nervous, but I sat down at talent pool next to someone who had the same last name as me, Sean Harris.
Yes.
And Sean and I are best friends today. And so, we took this path of INROADS, and, as nervous as we both were, really just, took it by storm and became the best of friends. And so INROADS started 29 years ago and is still a part of my life every day.
I can't wait to learn more. Gavin, how about you? Your first introduction to INROADS. They find you, you found them. What was that like in the beginning?
So I was an accounting major as a freshman at University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. HBCU, baby.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is part of our Black History Month show.
Dr. Dorothy Matterson, who was the head of the business and accounting and technology department, she pulled me aside and said, hey, Gavin, I think you could do really, really well by getting some internship experience. And so she gave me the brochure, said there's a chapter in Philadelphia. I applied, and thankfully I did get through, because this is a very competitive, INROADS is very, very competitive. And so I was very grateful to get the experience. I'll tell you, it's completely changed my life.
We're going to find out more about that. Ted, I see your head nodding. When did INROADS or that internship with the organization you work with, when did that get real? When did that get serious? When did you realize that, oh, they're not playing around. This is some serious stuff. I have to maintain my work ethic, my grades, when did it get real?
I think it got real on day one. And Jim, you obviously, I started at Prudential AARP operations, so you know a lot of the same people that I'm going to say. But Deborah Cross at the time was involved as as a coordinator for the INROADS program. And my first day, after catching 3 buses to get from Mount Airy to Fort Washington, PA, I walk in, and I went to Bishop McDevitt over in Wyncote. So some of you guys know that school. But I remember starting, I was dressed, I had my business attire on, I was good on that front. And I remember Deb Cross looking at me with her glasses kind of down, those reading glasses on your nose kind of a look, right? That, she used to walk around like this all the time. But I got that look from her. She looked at me and all she said was, "Are you ready to go to work?" Without smiling. And then I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Don't call me ma'am." So I think for me on day one, strike two, on day one, and then I joined a training class with a gentleman by the name of Craig Long. And I think that everything from there was really just trying to keep up with Craig. And we'll talk a little bit about the roles of mentors, but that was my mentor and coach. And I had somebody that was setting the pace for me. So that's kind of what happened and how I knew it was real from day one.
Doc, question for you specifically. How did INROADS prepare you for your career, since you're a student who was interested in the sciences rather than the traditional INROADS business career trajectory? So what was that like for you in the beginning?
So that was actually a little tricky for me in the beginning, because INROADS really targeted those students who had goals of landing a position with their sponsoring company, right? So I went into INROADS knowing I wanted to go to medical school. I knew that I did not want to land a position with the company, but I still needed an internship. And I needed to make some money during the summer. So I actually applied my freshman year in college. And at the time, they only had positions, I think, in a chemical company and one other place that had anything to do with the sciences. And I did not get in that first year. After that interview process, I went back to Mike Robinson, who was really instrumental. And I was like, look, there are people that want to do other things other than finance and business and so forth. To also target students of color who are interested in STEM. And so we need job opportunities, and there just weren't any that year. So the next year he called, he said, I got some companies I need.
You sound just like Mike when you said that. I got something for you.
Come back. So I went back, and sure enough, they had at least maybe 6 that were solid contenders. And I interviewed and had a wonderful opportunity to land a position doing research with SmithKline and French Laboratories in Sweetland, Pennsylvania. And when I took that position, I met with my manager and told them the plan. And they said, that's great. And I was able to get mentors who were actually able to help me get published in research. They were instrumental in doing my recommendations and so forth for medical school. So my experience was a little bit different, because their goal was not to place me there upon graduation, but their goal was to actually launch me into medical school. That was a little bit different than the initial vision for INROADS. And it actually opened doors for other people who are interested in STEM afterwards.
So you started running things, huh? and when Mr. Ricardo knew that was a future doctor, what happened next, Ricardo? No, I'm joking. Tell me about the impact that INROADS had on you while you were there. We'll get to the future later. I want to know about your time interning, INROADS, your job, the type of mentoring, coaching, modeling. How did they pour into you while you were there?
It was amazing. I essentially did research to get medications that were used on the bladder. And so what it taught me was that all the different steps that it takes to actually have a medication or a vaccine launched. So when I think of what it took to get our COVID vaccines launched, I know what usually happens and how long it usually takes. And so it gave me a different lens even for this process now. But I will say that my mentors then are still engaged with me now. So I still have contact with Dr. Holder, who was my mentor at Smith, Klein and French. And I don't know many people who could actually fully graduate from college and be an author on a paper.
I heard you were doing some lecturing during residency, and when you were at the actual hospital where you ended up getting your practice in. What do they call that when you are? Is it the residency or when you were at Einstein? What part of your career journey was happening there?
So I attended Hopkins for undergrad and then returned home back to Philly for medical school at Hahnemann, and then at Albert Einstein. So because I knew that my vision was to be an OBGYN, I was really targeting the sexually transmitted infection education. The HIV was at the height back then. And so I was really involved with a program called Babashi, Blacks Educating Blacks About Sexual Health Issues, and going into different venues, churches and other teen organizations and so forth, and really educating the youth on how to be safe. So
good stuff. Good stuff. Ricardo, how about you? When you were at INROADS, when you were at your internship, what did the INROAD mentors pour into you? What did they say? How did they model? How did they live what they gave? What was that like for you?
Thanks, Dr. James. For me, it was, looking back, it was foundational. And they really helped establish some core pillars that, have actually allowed me to continue to progress and more importantly, excel. I mean, to your earlier question, my expectation was to come in and find a job, but sort of like Ted, day one, I saw that this was serious. And what I would say about the experience is, I see myself as one of those true, diamonds in the rough. I was pretty much a lump of coal, and my wife can attest, she's still working on that diamond piece. But, really coming from first generation college, immigrant family, I didn't have sort of the network, the access, the knowledge, the wherewithal. So it was through that guidance counselor who put that INROADS pamphlet and talked about it in the context of a job, which then I had to convince my parents that would not compromise the college education I would be taking, right? And so had the drive, had the work ethic, but what INROADS did with those long, arduous, seemingly, I don't want to be here, weekend sessions on time management, how to dress, etiquette, right? Those are those kind of things where at the time, it wasn't about what they poured in as much as what I was willing to receive. I wasn't necessarily receptive, but what I will say is that INROADS gave me that foundation. They gave me the word, and some of those messages I had to get later. But I can look back at, the way I, operate, how I'm effective, and a lot of them goes to those fundamentals. And then the other thing that I think INROADS experience gave me indirectly really is a network. I didn't realize what we were doing at the time was networking. We were having fun. We were meeting great people. And it wasn't just a network. It was a diverse network because I was an accounting major. And what I found as you progressed, people became focused. Their circles became narrow and focused around that. And when we went into the workforce, I worked for Arthur Andersen, which was not my sponsoring company, but at the time, the Big Eight. There were 5 of us as Black professionals. And when we looked at our colleagues, they socialized a lot together, and a lot of their friends were accountants. And interestingly enough, because of INROADS, when I went out or we were walking downtown or I'd go to lunch with someone else, I'm like, what are you, the mayor? Because I would see other inroaders and they would go, yeah, they're working at a law firm. And so it was a tremendous network that actually, created a lot of value. So unbeknownst to me at the time. So there were a lot of things that INROADS gave me that over time I just continued to appreciate. And I can't, bar none, the counselors gave us, I think, their best. And what I mean by that, it was about what was in our best interest. And I can tell you that Michael Robinson kept saying, hey, what's up with Salika? I wasn't paying attention, man. But I
Okay. When you were at INROADS, how did you feel? Did you feel special? Did you feel pressure? Did you feel stress? Did you feel a greater sense of belonging?
Yeah.
When you were there during those 3-4 years, however long you were there,
yeah,
how did you feel? Because the inroaders who were at the organization that I worked full-time, they were in the gamut of special, privileged, hardworking, want to do my best. They ran the gamut. So
yeah.
How did you feel? We'll start with Ricardo, then we'll go to Mickey and Ted. How did you feel when you were there?
Well, I felt really appreciative at first to have that opportunity, i.e. to get a job in a corporate environment. I was their first enroader at Penwall, so I was sort of an experiment or pioneer in their eyes as well. But that also brought some of that fear and that pressure, because I also knew I better do well because they don't know. And if I know that my successes may be individualized, but my failures would be cast upon a number of people who I wouldn't have had the pleasure of meeting. And so we were required to perform. There was what I would call positive pressure, clearly, from the INROADS staff, but it was positive because it was supportive. I think as I went through the INROADS program, meaning more towards my senior year, I started feeling that, not necessarily special, but confident in not only what I was doing, but more importantly, what I would be able to do going forward. Because coming into INROADS, being in that talent pool, coming from Southwest Philadelphia, diamond in the rough, and I'm seeing a lot more polished kids than Mount Airy guys, we know. And I'm saying, I don't know. You don't know if this is sort of your league, but it was about someone who, or an organization who saw the potential, but more importantly, nurtured that in a supportive way, and allowed me to, again, establish that foundation for growth and success.
Thank you. Mickey, before you answer, I'm going to read the question in the chat room because I think that's comparable to the question that I asked. It said, did you feel pressure at a young age being part of INROADS, having to perform at a high level, both academically and professionally? If so, how did you deal with it? And did that prepare you for handling future pressures in your life? So it's a combination of my question, how did you feel? And how did you deal with any pressure that you felt having to excel both academically and professionally?
Okay, that's great. My sponsoring company was Arthur Anderson. So when I first started, Ricardo was on the audit staff as a full-time employee. and he mentioned what he learned, but he then became that role model, mentor, example of what you work towards. So so there might have felt pressure because INROADS did make you grow up, where all of a sudden you're commuting, time management, just working in corporate culture. For me, it was coming out of high school before my freshman year of college. And so having the example of Ricardo was something that allowed me to know I was okay, and that this was something I was going to be able to do. Beyond the office, Dory was that point, and then Rodney. And so once I got to Spelman, first semester was great, but then I started having too much fun, and I got into GPA trouble. And so Dory called me up, and she said, "What's up? What's going on? What are you doing?" And so she was like, "You can't mess this up and lose your internship." And so she helped me with just getting that calculus tutor and checking in with me and making sure that I was doing what I needed to do academically, which, you know, I had never in my life gotten under. I was usually a straight A, some B student. And once that a C was approaching, Dory said, get that off of your record. So having that mentorship again is what helped me get through those situations. And I carry that with me today, whether it's still getting mentored or mentoring other people, but really relying on your village, your community, and looking at the examples that are there and realizing you can achieve and grow up even when you don't think you're ready to.
I can see Dory calling you right now, and you didn't do a good Dory impersonation. Girl, what's up with that C? You were kind. You were kind. Ted, how about you? Feeling pressure, or how did you feel when you were at Prudential?
Yeah, you felt. I always called INROADS. Well, first of all, that was probably my HBCU experience, if you know, or as close as I got to it, right, from an academic standpoint. But it also just kind of regulated the ego. You think about where you were when you're 18, 19. You think you're special, right? You think you're doing things that nobody else is doing, and you get around the brilliance and the talent that INROADS kind of brought forward, and you saw again in a healthy way the competition, where you heard somebody else is doing what you're doing plus something different, or somebody's going to their school and they're getting these types of experiences, or through their internship getting these experiences, or you kind of go to the award ceremony and you hear about the accolades of the kind of the people you're with. And Jim, it goes right to the second part of it, is just accountability. I think Nikki nailed it. Is you are held accountable to what you were supposed to be doing, right? INROADS had certain requirements from a GPA standpoint, from a community service standpoint, from your participation in those fun workshops that Ricardo was talking about earlier. And if you slipped from that, you were held accountable. And the story I always takes me back to, Jim, that you might recall, it was after the first year when we had the summer award ceremony, the banquet. Yes. And everybody gets to stand up when you're over a certain GPA, and I didn't stand up.
I remember.
And Jim was at the table that I was at. And my father, who was alive at the time, bless his soul, was also at that table. And I got the look from my dad, but I think
yes, you did.
From you, Jim.
Yes, you did.
But I think your look might have been more menacing. So it was just one of those things where you were held accountable, healthy competition. You saw what others were able to accomplish. You pushed yourself more, and that network, that support, that family kind of environment that INROADS provided, but absolutely was special. So I felt special, during those years because of those two things.
And you guys were special, at least in my organization. People would say, they're the INROADS students, leave them alone, leave them alone. They're intern, they're INROADS, leave them alone. Toya and Gavin, I want to see how good your memory is. We're going to show a few pictures, and I want to see if you remember what's on those. Toya's like, what? Let's show the first one. I believe it's the Pico building, the evening of one of your events. Let's take a look and see if any good memories come back. All right. Toya, Gavin, talk to us.
I remember that. I remember that one. That was probably during one of our events, right? The night of one of our, 1994? That might have been a little bit before us, but every time that there was an event, they would put this up on the Pico building, right?
That's right.
Absolutely. G, you remember?
Was it the award ceremony?
Yeah.
Every year.
Every year. How about this next slide? Next picture. Toya, Gavin, what's happening here?
Oh, wow.
Those are the INROADS counselors. I know them. That's Rodney.
Debbie Hill.
Debbie Hill.
That's Ron and Debbie Hill and Rodney.
Oscar.
Sharon.
Yeah, Oscar.
Bill.
And
Mike's on there, right?
Yeah. Larry Boyd.
Larry Boyd. Yes.
Is that Vernell? No, that's not Vernell, is it?
Wait.
I think that is. I know that's Sharon. That's Michelle Burdell.
Wow.
Bill
Was
Hart.
that young lady named Tiffany?
Yeah, Bill Hart on the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about this next one? How about this next picture?
That's Debbie Hill.
Debbie Hill is George Burrell, Michelle Burdell.
Yeah. Pat Coulter.
Oh, that's George. Oh, wow.
Let's go to the next one.
Debbie.
Debbie and Pat Coulter.
Yeah.
Pat was in charge before Ron came on board.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about this next one?
That's Ron.
That's when Ron was retiring, managing director. And I think we have one more. Talent Pool Career Weekend. You guys remember that?
Wow. That was the weekend we were all very nervous.
Yes.
I remember scanning the room in Talent Pool, and you're looking at like folks showing up in all kinds of outfits. You're like, man, what in the world?
That was the combine. That was
before the training,
purpose, right? That was the purpose of Talent Pool, right?
That's
to
right.
sort of get you through the process and then start to teach you and start to train you, after that process.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when I did my first presentation for INROADS, it was during the summer program, or you guys had a week away or a weekend in residency, something like that. And I was prepping, and Rodney came over to me and said, they were partying all last night, man. It's going to be tough to get them to pay attention. It's going to be tough. They were getting it in. So my opener, I said, if you're breathing, please stand up. And everyone stood up. And then I said, if you were in bed by 7 o'clock, sit down. 8 o'clock, sit down. 9 o'clock, sit down. I'm at 3 o'clock in the morning and people still standing up. However,
we were honest.
You were honest and you paid attention the full 90 minutes. Rodney, like, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? I said, they party hard and they work hard too. Party hard and work hard. Doc, there is a question for you. It says, what can doctors do to combat the maternal health crisis for Black women? What do you say to Black women who are hesitant to have children because of the maternal health crisis for Black women in America? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I was trying to see if they say maternal health crisis. Studies have shown that Black patients receive better care from Black doctors. So we have patients coming to us now, targeting and really seeking out Black providers. I feel like the other day, maybe 2 days ago, was National Women's Physician Day. And as we all posted on social media, the Black physicians, female physicians only make up 2% of the physician population. So there aren't that many of us, but we are out there. So I think that for our Black patients who are considering getting pregnant, if you can't find a Black physician, find a practice who is concerned about outcomes of particularly of their Black patients. And don't be afraid to ask. I have patients all the time that come in and ask, what are your risk factors, or how many patients do you have, Black patients do you have that get preeclampsia, or what kind of preventive measures do you do to prevent those outcomes? And also target a hospital that is really concerned about outcomes again. So not just the practice and not just the providers, but also target the hospital, because once you arrive at the hospital for care, you want to have staff, you want to have nurses that are well versed in symptoms and so forth, and really, really able to see those symptoms early before potential horrific outcomes can happen. We're here, we're available. So I would really urge you to try to find a Black provider if you can.
If someone wanted to reach out to you to gain more information, how could they reach you? Website, or where could they go? We'll put it in the chat room.
Sure. I am now, you can reach me at drsuleikamichelle@gmail.com, DrSuleikamichelle@gmail.com. I'm currently part of a partner at Annapolis OBGYN at Luminous Health Annapolis. I will be transitioning my position at the end of April, but right now I'm at that particular practice. If you need to reach out there, but don't hesitate to send an email if you have any questions or you want to get in contact with the providers in my group. We have, there are 4 of us there, 4 particular Black female providers, and our voices are heard. So we have been very diligent with educating our white counterparts on risk factors and preventive measures that need to be taken with our patients. So much so that our electronic medical records has hard stops for Black patients. So we cannot close out charts unless we have executed specific preventive measures for the patients and documented such.
Doc, I'm gonna stay with you for a second. We have some video footage of you in action, and it was recorded, I believe, when the pandemic first started trending in March of 2020. You made time for yourself. I don't know how, but you made time to do a video and go for a walk and share what was on your mind at that time. Let's take a look.
Hey everyone, I am out finally getting my exercise in from today. I have actually been in the office, unlike a lot of you who have actually been able to socially isolate yourselves. Some of us are still considered essential personnel and we still need to go into work. So I did. And just wanted to share a few things with you from my experience this week. There's a lot of anxiety around this COVID-19 with my patients, with staff and so forth. If you are a patient, I would strongly request that you not make yourselves present in a doctor's office unless you absolutely need to be there. It increases your risk for exposure to this virus, and it increases our risk for exposure to the virus. And right now, we actually are literally putting ourselves on the front lines to care for patients. So we really do not want to put patients at risk of exposure who really just don't need to be there in the office. So if you have a routine exam for anything coming up that can wait, I would say wait at least another 6 to 8 weeks if you can. If you are a pregnant patient, by all means continue your prenatal care. You may notice that some of your visits may be spaced out a little bit. Still within safe parameters for visits, but take that as knowing that your office and your physicians and your providers are essentially trying to keep you safe.
Trying to keep you safe. Where are we now? Where are we now relative to then? That was March of 2020. Where are we now, Doc?
We are a whole lot better, but we are not where we need to be. That was back then when first we were told not to wear masks. Then we were reprimanded for wearing masks because they thought that providers wearing masks would cause angst and anxiety for patients who saw that. And then we didn't have enough of our masks and PPE. So we went from that to being concerned about the vaccine and doing education on that. And I do a lot of education on COVID vaccines, particularly for minority communities, because there's a lot of reservation. There still is some reservation, not quite as much. Right now, we are back in the office. We are back in full swing. We are still fully masked in our office. We're asking our patients to be fully masked, and our surgeries are now reinstated. Our elective surgeries are now reinstated. Our hospital had paused surgeries again. They just became reinstated probably in the past week or so because the numbers had risen. And I think our biggest message is that we get the concern that you mentioned about the vaccine in the beginning, but the vaccine it has been given to millions of people, and we feel like it is extremely safe. It is particularly safe for our pregnant patients. We're encouraging our pregnant patients to be vaccinated, And we're encouraging our women to get vaccinated before they even get pregnant. So we can probably even do another talk on that, and I can walk through why we feel that way. But it took me a minute to get to that place because the vaccination process was so politicized. But once we kind of removed that umbrella of politics away and really did a deep dive into the science, we really feel like this is one of the safest products, one of the safest vaccines in particular that has been created. So we are back in full swing, still need to be socially distancing, still need to be wearing masks, and encouraging family and friends to also get vaccinated. We're still dying. I just lost a family member a few weeks ago to COVID. So COVID is still here. COVID is still real.
It is real. And the production team, we talked beforehand and we said we want to bring all of you back individually because your story is so compelling. So be looking out for us to do that. Mickey, we got a couple of pictures of you back then. I want you to take a look at those pictures, tell us what's going on, and also answer this question. How is INROADS a part of your life today?
Oh my goodness. Wow. So I don't even remember where these are. It must be Bryn Mawr. I don't even know.
But because that was remember they made us wear pantyhose?
Yes. Oh yes. This was before business casual was even a term. I know that the one on the right, only because I know like when I had that suit, I can't remember the left, but I know that I owned one suit throughout my INROADS career, and that would be the suit on the left. And I think I got fashion tips from Ricardo because I would show up to the internship with my aunt's suits, and she was about 4 sizes bigger than I was, shoulder pads out to here. And, I just made sure I had a suit because we had to dress that way. But I had the opportunity on the right to recruit for INROADS. So when I went to Spelman, I was in my freshman year, and I was outfitted with the INROADS brochures and did information sessions for students from the Philly area to then interview and apply for INROADS Philadelphia. And so just starting with that was my first time where I was, put in a situation where I was leading a room, a discussion, and influencing people to look at this opportunity. And so I stuck with that through the years, and after I graduated would come back and still continue to do recruiting sessions and information sessions for people interested in INROADS.
So how is INROADS a part of your life today?
Mainly through the relationships. And it really, we all can say this, INROADS was a family. So Ted mentioned it was his HBCU experience. It really was a family. Whether you knew people well or not, there were connections, and there was a responsibility to look out for each other. And so I learned the power of networking, of communication, of just connecting with people. And I've held on to that throughout the years, for sure. Just talking to Rodney 2 weeks ago, we picked up as if we had just talked a couple weeks ago, and it had been years. He couldn't believe my age when I told him. So he's like, how does this happen? But yeah, just last night, I have 2 boys, a 14-year-old and a 6-year-old. My 14-year-old, Biko.
Hold on. Watch this magic. You said you had 2 boys. Let's see if we can make that materialize a picture of you and your 2 boys. What?
Yes.
What?
Yes. What? Oh, you guys are good. You guys are good. So the older one, just last night, he wanted to go play pickup basketball, and my body cannot play pickup basketball anymore. So I said, call Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike is my INROADS friend, Mike Davis, who was in INROADS Philadelphia, and a neighbor down the street, and we're raising our children all together in a way that Mike came, picked Biko up, they went to the Y, his son, they played pickup basketball last night. And for me, I don't have to worry about where is he, who's he with, what's happening with the kids. And so for me, that connection, that family that started with INROADS almost 30 years ago is still very much a part of my life and crucial as I raise my children too, and build friendships through the families.
I love it. I love it. Ted, we have some pictures of you back in the day too. Want to take a look at these, but also ask you the total impact INROADS has had on your personal and professional life. What's been the overall impact? And also tell us about these pictures.
Oh man. Wow. So I think similarly, we always, we all talk a little bit about what we did while we were in the INROADS program, but what we also try to do after, right, the INROADS program. And I think two of these pictures, at least, the mustache is looking probably at its peak on the ones on the left versus the ones on the right. But I think what I was doing, I was very involved to, like people said earlier, helping to recruit, being part of some of the community service events that INROADS did, being part of the different, whether it was the talent weekends or coming back and actually, teaching some workshops as well. I had a role on the board. We had an alumni board that I worked very closely with Rodney on. That was probably a part of that. That picture at the bottom left might be from one of those board meetings. And then I'm not sure where we were. That looks like a little bit more of a casual affair on the one on the right where I'm shaking hands with the gentleman. But obviously, it was a big part of who I was and what I did and how I tried to give back. And Sharon Rose was always really preaching that back in those days. And she was my angel. Kept me out of a lot of trouble, saved me out from a lot of things. But obviously, was a big person to kind of set the expectation as I kind of went forward. But
now look at you. Now look at you. You had your third VP job. I mean, you and VP job just follow each other everywhere, right?
It's been a journey, man. But I think about the foundation. Everyone talked about it. Things that we were doing in those summer workshops, things that we were exposed to just from the network, the support we got from the companies that we worked at, and from individuals that have become lifelong friends. You had a chance to learn a lot of things a lot earlier than other people did in their careers, right? There's training that we roll out at Paychecks now from a corporate standpoint, were things that we were doing back at Bryn Mawr College, right, during the middle of July. After partying, so at least some folks were partying till 3 a.m. I was probably more of a midnighter. But
Ted, I went to 4, I went to 5, I went to 6. Some people didn't go to bed.
But I think it's the foundation, and I think it's also part of the DNA as I think about how I am now and how I interact with students that were like me. It's my passion, right? It's a lot of the community work I do, the volunteer work I do is very much involved in giving people opportunities and giving people mentorship and coaching. But I think the access, right, the time that you can take with individuals when you're walking back probably a little bit more pre-COVID, but when you see people right in your respective organizations or in different community organizations you're a part of, just making sure you make time for people and you take a vested interest in people. Because I know I wouldn't be here if I didn't have people like yourself doing that for me. So it's definitely just part of my DNA and who I am, and hopefully, the brand that I'll continue to carry as long as I can. So that's really what INROADS established for me.
You carry it well. That community work, you do work with Boys and Girls Club, American Red Cross, United Way. But even though you've moved away from Philly, this next picture lets everyone know who do you really cheer for. Okay. Okay. Right. All right. Looks like we have your family over there, and we have you on February 4th, I believe, 2018, when we won the Super Bowl.
we were bringing it home, man. That picture. Both these pictures are very special for obvious reasons. But my daughter, my son, and I, we didn't let my wife wear the hat because she usually has bad luck when she wears when she roots for our team. So she always resented that picture. But the one on the left with them was my daughter's graduation party. She's now a freshman in college, and that was our chance to you don't get the kids together, as we all know, for pictures very often. But they took one. It was a very nice one, and they're both special to me. So thank you for sharing those.
Absolutely. Gavin, Toya, we talked about children are our future. I want you to speak to this picture. I believe it's a family picture, but also talk about the indelible lessons that INROADS had on you. The lessons, the advice. Do you remember any of those lessons or advice you received from the INROADS leadership team, and how are you passing those lessons and advice on to these beautiful, beautiful children?
Yes, so this picture is last year's family picture that we get all dressed up for every year. But that's our daughter Maya and our son Roman. Of course, that's Gavin and I. I just feel like every interaction I had when I was at INROADS, they were always dropping pearls of wisdom on us. Everything that they were telling us was valuable, and you didn't realize it in the moment. But now, sitting here 20 something years later, I'm saying to myself, things like always be prepared for meetings, always be interacting and building relationships, go to lunch with those who are around you, pay attention to the people who are sitting next to you. When I got to college, they said, look to your right, look to your left, those people won't be sitting there. I think if you're in a room of INROADS interns, you need to look to your left, look to your right, and realize that one day, some of those people you're sitting next to will be the next CFO or CEO or president or doctor or lawyer. You are sitting in a room of greatness. You just don't know the incredible potential that is in that room is amazing. But in that moment, you don't know. But I know now, looking back.
Toya, you just said a room full of greatness. We're not going to have enough time to get through all this, but we have people on here who are senior level people, partners, first African-American physician. We have someone on here who has photographed 6 of the previous 8 presidents. We have some greatness. Keep going, Toya, keep going.
Yeah, so when I look at my INROADS experience, I just know that looking back, and I still run into them. The world is so interesting. I actually placed someone this year as an executive director of the regional foundation here in Philadelphia. And he was a person who came to INROADS, worked for INROADS, and spoke and put us through trainings back in the day. And I'm thinking, this world is so interconnected in so many ways. When I walk into a room of Black professionals, I know that probably 25 to 50% of them started in INROADS. I know it. I know it when I walk in the room. And I can't wait to figure out who in the room who had an INROADS experience. But I bet if you said who was INROADS, you always know an INROADS intern when you see one. And it's amazing. Some of the other things I'm just thinking about, take notes. INROADS is a family. I can't tell you how many times I have been in places where I needed help and I called on somebody who was a part of the INROADS family. I remember when I got out of college, unfortunately, the sponsoring company that I was with went through a major downsizing in human resources. And I remember calling Kelly Cottom and she said,
Kelly,
oh, no. You're an INROADS intern. We will figure something out for you. And so she sent me for about 3 or 4 interviews. None of those worked out, but she was there still trying to work things out for me. And I really just always appreciated that. And even now, that still happens on a regular basis where people who have that ties to INROADS are still working to help me all the time.
Gavin, ditto, cosign. Was there anything else, advice you received in addition to what Toya, or what's the advice? Yo, gee, man, you want to talk to her?
No, it was well said. I mean, that's exactly the experience that we continue to have, right? When you think of, honey, our wedding, right? We had 1 or 2 INROADers in our party with us, right? It truly was a family, right? Extended relationships that we continue to have today, and just the sharing of the experience. I heard Nikki maybe talk a little bit about folks that she met in when she landed in talent pool or landed in LDI, and it's the relationships that continue to go on, but it's beyond just the immediate INROAD participants. For me, I think I started off telling you that I was an accounting major, right? My first internship was with DuPont for 2 years. My second year, I was working in tax, I think state and local tax. The lady Glenda Brewington. I don't know, nobody's ever gonna know that lady's name. but she pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Gavin, there's a software called SAP." She was leading the global implementation of SAP for DuPont. And she says, "Look into this. It is going to be huge." 5 years later, I ended up having an opportunity to be the risk leader within Ernst & Young Philadelphia, helping to drive risk management around SAP implementations. Right? My next job after Ernst & Young was Endo Pharmaceutical. I ended up leading the risk management function for the SAP implementation for Endo. It was all because 15 years earlier, Glenda Brewington at DuPont said, "Hey, Gavin, consider this." And that's just one example of countless people investing and sharing with us, right, as INROADS interns. Not let alone, the folks that are around us, the counselors, the parties that we've come into play with. It's changed my life. By the way, I get my lovely wife in the process, right? I'm a winner. I'm a winner.
I love it. I love it. We're getting to the end of the show. Before we move into the very last portion of the show, I would be remiss if I didn't show this one more picture. We talked about couples. I think this next picture really speaks to things as well. All right. All right. Ricardo, they your peeps?
Wow. Yeah, I know those people. Oh, man. Yes, nature's kind, as you can see, the children take after their mother.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, before we finish the show, since I am a speaker, I've included a speaking component to the show. And that is, at the end of the show, each guest gives us a 15 to 30 seconds, no more than 30-second keynote, motivational keynote, some words of encouragement, words of inspiration, a call to action. Mickey talked about she lives her life through story. Any story advice? Doc has been a pioneer all her life, is knocking down barriers. All of you, the talent is immense. So I'm going to go around the room, call your name, give us 15 to 30 seconds, check your mic. If you want to lean in, you can, but give us a mini keynote for us to hold on to your words for the rest of 2022 and beyond. And I'm going to start out with Gavin. Get us started.
Keep chasing. There's so much opportunity that's available to us. You're going to face a whole lot of challenges in life, but if you continue to chase, put God first in what you do, hands down, the opportunities are there, and you can make really, really good out of it. Help others along the way. It will pay back.
Love it. Toya, let's keep it going.
Yeah, I'm just thinking relationships. Nobody gets to be the CEO of a company without somebody helping them to get there. And my mother always used to say, if you are in a room, you deserve to be in that room. And the opportunities that have been given to you while you're in that room, make friends, build relationships, and try to get to know people on a very personal level, because people remember those who they get to know, but they like and they trust. And you never know where that person you're talking to in that moment is going to end up, but they will bring you along with them.
Hold on for a second. Let me pick up that mic. You just dropped it. Let me pick it up. All right, Dr. You're on. Dr. Salika, your words of encouragement.
Wow, those are powerful. Being the mother of a competitive swimmer, one of the mantras that really stands out for me as I now transition into the next chapter of my career is stepping out of your comfort zone, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. So once you decide that it's time for a change, don't be afraid to make the change. There can be light at the end of that change. And so particularly for me, with some health changes and so forth, work smarter, not harder. But get comfortable being uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to take those risks. You'd be surprised at the outcome.
Love it. Take those risks. You pick up that mic again. Give it to Ricardo.
Thanks, Dr. James. I would say, look, as you go through life, things aren't always going to be easy. In fact, they're going to be hard. But I would tell you that strength comes from that struggle. Accept it. Don't try to find the easy way out. Power through. And when you're successful, just remember that you didn't get there alone. That's success. And I'm evidence of that. I'm standing on the shoulders of a lot of people who poured into me that I know and a lot who I don't know. And as you meet people along the way, as you heard before, look at them, appreciate them, and get to know them, because you're probably only seeing a glimpse of the greatness that they're about to achieve. And wherever you go, wherever you land, always represent hometown. So for the Philly fans out there, Eagles fans out there, do your thing.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Nikki, what's going on with you smiling over there? What's your thoughts, your words, your story? Talk to us.
All right. Well, thanks. When I turned 24, I asked myself this question: who am I? Why am I doing this? What am I doing? And I could not answer those questions. I realized that I had inroads, and that was phenomenal as I entered the corporate space. But the longer I worked in that space, I felt like I was losing a sense of self. And I had to ask myself, what is the meaning of all this? And in doing that, I say this today to everyone is to ask, who am I? Ask yourself that question. And what is it I love? And also the question, what is it that I can do today that will impact generations from now, so that my presence is not just for today's moment, but for future generations? I think asking yourself those questions allows you to articulate who you are, think about who you are, and go beyond the presentation of who you are and more to the expression of who you are and putting that into your work. So find those spaces that allow you to magnify who you are as you ask yourself those questions.
Wow. Theodore, you got your work cut out for you, man. You just heard 5 fabulous mini keynotes. Bring us home.
There's nobody on. Everybody's hitting home runs, man. Nobody's on base right now, so no pressure. So let's try. So my words of advice would be, make it better. Challenge yourself to always make the situation you're involved in better. When you meet somebody, try to make that person's day better. When you walk into the room, you try to make that a better room. When you walk into, your organization, whether it's your company or community organization, your church, challenge yourself to make it better. When you're involved, in your community or with your family, make it better. I think for me, one of the things that motivates me and gives me that energy that kind of keep, going at full tilt, and try to be that high impact person that I strive to be, is always, trying to make sure that I'm making things better than they were when I got there.
I love it. Make it better. Make it better. You have made our show better. Time has flown by, really representing Black History Month, you making Black history as we speak. I told you guys who are watching, this is going to be a compelling show, great show. We're going to bring them all back if time permits, because they all have an amazing story. Every Dr. James show, we bring it, bring friends, bring colleagues to watch it in the future. I want to thank all of you for making the time to help us celebrate Black History Month by sharing your past, your present, the role INROADS played in your life, and what you're doing now, because you're making noise, you're changing lives, you're difference makers. So we thank you for that. And as always, we say you just had an informational and transformational experience. And guess what? You were just impacted. We'll see you back here next week. Take care.